Hello, I'd like to review the second part of the assignment for your construction materials class and hopefully help you through an understanding of what is required for this part of it. Again, if you have any questions, you are always welcome to come into my office hours or send me an email regarding the assignment. So for this assignment, you have developed a wall section and have a baseline understanding of how to calculate the design heat load and annual heat load for a house. That house was given to you in terms of what it looked like in this first part of the assignment. I'm asking you for this part to develop your own small house, and that should be 1,400 to 1,500 square feet with 3 bedrooms, no garage. And you're going to submit or draw a plan of that house. That plan should include a drawing title, a north arrow, a scale, room names, the overall dimensions, and the door and window sizes. You should include both the width and the height of that door and window, and it should be printed to scale. So if you had a house that was configured in a square or a rectangle, I would need the overall dimensions here. If you're developing a plan that had an irregular configuration for that plan, you would need to give me all of those dimensions for the various sides. I suggest you keep it nice and straightforward for this project. It's not a design exercise. It's really fundamentally about understanding heating costs and how you calculate the R values for those projects. So again, try to keep it simple with regard to the layout. Make sure it's printed to scale when you submit it as well. The next part of that is taking this plan, once you have it developed, and I don't care if you draw it by hand or you draw it in the computer, it needs to be clear and have the information that I've designated here. But again, the method by which you create that, it does not matter to me. You're going to revise the wall section that you created in the first assignment, and you will either get back your comments from me by then or you have already received them. And you're going to revise this wall section based on that feedback. You'll include that in this next part. So the wall section, again, should be printed to scale. All the elements should be visible with a list of the materials and the R value for each of those components. So for the last assignment, you had to create this drawing for each of those 4 areas: the ceiling, the wall, the rim joist, and the basement. You need to take that information and also revise it. For this particular one, if you want to keep the format the same and include the detail, that's fine. But what I'm really looking for is this information with the list of the R values associated with it. And so I should see the revisions to that part of your project as well. For the previous assignment, you created the this worksheet for the design minimum and annual heat loads and added in all of those values based on that previous house. You will have to revise those areas based on your new house. So clearly it's no longer 30 by 40 because that would be too small. It would be 1,400 to 1,500 square feet. And then you will include those revised R values. One part that deviates from the previous part would be, again, for the doors and the windows. This time I want you to go online and I want you to look at what the manufacturer's literature would be for a door and for a window type, and include that in the new worksheet. So you'll find that information. Remember, it's often given to you as a U value for that piece of it. And it's even, if you look at the Michigan Energy Code, it even gives the factors for fenestration as a U value because that is typical. You need to convert that to an R value by taking the reciprocal of that number. So once you have the manufacturer's information for that, you're going to include the R values for both doors and windows. You're going to revise the areas again for rim joist and the foundation wall based on your new house. The air changes per hour will stay the same, as will the 0.018 factor, and then the heated volume would be revised to reflect the new house that you've created. That heated volume could be for a single story with an unheated basement, or it could be single story with a heated basement space. And you just have to identify that, although you don't have to draw that lower level, even if it is a heated volume downstairs. I really want to just see the perimeter. I'm going to assume that it is would be a similar footprint down below. Once you have the value that you've recalculated here, you're going to add that back in, and this is all going to be the same type of calculation, just with those new values. So for me to explain the next part, I want to utilize the hypothetical value for this. So for my previous, or for my new 1,400 square foot house, I have a hypothetical value for the BTUs per year of 50,319,444. And that's going to be the value that I'm going to plug into the next worksheet. And that worksheet is the heating values cost comparison sheet. And what that does is give you some different types of fuel that would be used to heat a home, what the units that that fuel type typically comes in, and then what the BTU or British thermal unit content would be for that fuel type, and then what the unit cost would be. And what you're asked to identify is the cost per million BTUs and figure out that worksheet. So let me go through the example of propane. So if I'm looking at this particular one, I'm going to use this formula up here. So I'm going to take 1 million, multiply that by the cost of fuel unit, which that is $2.40, so 2.40, and I'm dividing that by the heating value of fuel unit in BTUs. So I'm dividing it by this number right here, and that is going to give me $26.09. So the cost per million BTUs for propane is $26.09 per million BTUs. You should do that for each of the other types of heating for this table. Once you complete this table, you're going to use those values for the annual cost using different types of heating systems. So not just the fuel type, but then what the system it is that you're using to heat the house would be. And so again, for this particular part of it, again, if I'm looking at different types of heating, I mean, I think you have, it's kind of broken down into, here's the section on the electric, if you're using that for a heating type, here's wood, natural gas for parts of that, and then propane, and you can see the oil here. And so it covers the same fuel types that are on this first part, right? Natural gas, propane, fuel oil, electricity, mixed hardwoods, and live steam for the heating fuel type. And so the formula that you would use is given up here. So cost per million BTU, or multiplied by the million BTU consumed per year, and the AFUE, which is the annual fuel utilization efficiency for each of those heating types. And that would give you an estimated annual fuel cost. So let me go through one type. So if I use propane standing pilot, for that. And I look at, I know that I calculated the cost per million for propane. That's $26.09. So now I'm going to use that in this. And so I need to have the cost per million, which is that factor 26.09 that I had from the previous example. And I need to multiply that by the million BTU consumed per year. And so if I look at this table, this gives me the BTU per year. I need to convert that to million BTU per year. So that's the first thing that I need to do, is convert that so I have a consistent value for that. So if I take my previous 50,319,444 and divide that by a million, that gives me 50.32 million BTUs consumed per year. And so that's the factor that I need to, in order to get to a consistent unit, to use up in this formula up here. So 50.32, and I'm dividing it by that annual fuel utilization efficiency, which for the standing propane pilot is 62% or 0.62. That gives me a value of $2,117.50 per year to heat that house using propane as my heating. And so you need to go through and calculate that for each of these system types. And I need to see those calculations. So on another sheet of paper, you would include this for each one of those. So first, what's your factor in terms of getting that to the consistent unit that you need to plug in, and then giving me each one of those types, and then the answer for that. And what you will see at the end is, given the house that you have and the system type that you have and its efficiency, you'll see what would be the most expensive way to heat the house and what would be the least expensive way to heat that house, using at least the types that are given here. So what I expect for you to turn into me would be the cover sheet, the floor plan, your revised wall section, your R values revised for each of those 4 areas, the manufacturer information, your heat load worksheets showing your calculations, your heating values, again, show your calculations, the heating cost comparison sheet, and again, show your calculations for that sheet as well. So those are, for this next part, what I would expect to have you submit as part of that. And if you look at this sheet, you'll see the points allotted for each one of those pieces. So the floor plan, the wall section, the manufacturer's information, the R value sheet, the heat load sheet, the annual cost comparison sheet, and then that cover sheet. So those are the components that comprise and the points associated with it for this next part. And again, if you have any questions, please get in touch with me.